So welcome to another Wargame review from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander. I'm just here on my own today. We're going to take a look at a game called Last Battle Shima, 1945. And this is from Revolution Games. It's a polybag game, and it covers what was the last kind of ground invasion combat in the Pacific and thus of World War II. And Shima was an island very close to the home islands of Japan, and this was the last one that they had kind of a beach invasion, kind of what you'd expect, taking atolls. There was a strategic airfield there, and the Japanese retreated into the town and the urban areas that was built onto a mountain, and there they just kind of dug in, and this kind of recreates that. So hit this front cover of the game. So, very evocative, nice blue. You can see the kind of the smoke rising. Just a very small island, but it was very heavily defended. But it was the last dregs of what was left of the Japanese kind of home island defense forces. So it was always going to be a last stand kind of defense. Had the old banzai charges at the end of it. This game, I'm here on my own because I decided to play this one solo. And I say that because we recently played Patton's Vanguard, which is Revolution Games' most recent game, also designed by Mike Ranella. And it's exactly the same area impulse system. That was a good two-player game just because the battle had two, I want to say, equal sides to it. This one is Americans storm the beach and smash the Japanese. And the Japanese are just trying to not die. And so I want to play that solo because no one wants to sit here for an hour and a half and get beat genuinely for an hour and a half. And at the end, you didn't die. That maybe isn't the most fulfilling role to have as a wargamer. Your time is precious. We totally get it. So that's why I did this one solo. And I can tell you it makes a great solo game. Very rarely were there things. There were a couple times where it was like the Japanese pass, because it would be very disadvantageous for them to do counterattacks or to do anything. But it made for a fun solo game. It was cool. You just do kind of best possible move for the Japanese, which a lot of the time is reinforce or just rearrange their forces, try to defend well by getting different mixes of units and good strength units together. That's kind of how it ends up. You do a few different bombardments, and every so often you'll do some very powerful counterattacks, but you got to really pick those. And a lot of the times there's this special night phase. Most of the games played impulses during the day, but the Japanese get the special kind of night turn at the end, where they can secretly bring in some special units. They get a bonus to getting extra explosives, and they can kind of do some bits and pieces, which was really fun. That was a nice little touch. I had a fun time doing that. Difficult, but you brought out some of the theme of this is what it was like. They would just sit in foxholes, sit in the caves in the mountains, sit in pillboxes, just defend, and then at night sneak around. They'd have some of the forces here are civilians. And they have like a 1 or a 0 combat strength because it was just the locals, and they'd give them satchel charges and say, hey, go throw these at American trenches and foxholes, things like that. And that's represented in the game by those counters and doing that stuff at night. So you get some very interesting situations that happen, but really playing this game 4 or 5 times, you might see a lot of similarity. So replay value, there is some. But, I think this game costs like $25, maybe? For $25, this is a great solo game. I had a blast playing it. Would I play it 2-player? Having played it solo, I probably wouldn't. Just because I wouldn't subject someone else to that. Would I voluntarily play the Japanese? Maybe. Maybe I would do that. But probably not. So to me, this is a solitaire game. There's no hidden information or anything like that. You go by impulses, so you just do best possible move. If you want to see this game and how it all works. I did a full solitaire playthrough, like I just said. So you can, and I recorded the whole thing, so you can go and watch that. I'll put a link up to that. But what I'll do is I'll kind of quickly show you the board and kind of what it looks like. I'm not going to go through all of the mechanics, just because go watch the solo playthrough. It doesn't take all that long. But so I'll just show you some bits and pieces to just give you an idea of the flavor of the game, and then we'll come back just for kind of a wrap up. So here's a quick look at the board. Honestly, I'm not going to go through a lot of the stuff here, just because I did a full solo playthrough where we went through all the rules and we just played the whole game. So if you want to learn the game, just straight up, you can watch that. It's really, really easy. But as you can see, it's actually a really cool map. I actually really like this map. It looks like, and I don't know if it is or not, it looks like it's a scan of a genuinely old military intelligence map. If you look at kind of the detailing here, you've got the airfield marked out. It looks like there's some kind of handwritten and hand-typed things. It's got a really cool aesthetic to it. There's 16 areas. This is an area impulse game. You have an impulse track down here, victory point track, turn track, all that kind of stuff. Honestly, it's a game of attrition and trying to just storm the island. The Japanese players trying to hang on for dear life. You'll start with some forces lined up on the beaches and some in kind of the urban and mountainous areas here. And it's honestly, it's just land your guys and try and smash them. It's really is, that's what the game is. As such, it's maybe not the most deep game in that sense. You just move your stacks around, going into areas, chucking dice, trying to smash things. It's really fun, very easy to learn, very easy to play. The counters are fantastic. I really like these. If you kind of look at them, they're a great size counter. They have a good thickness to them as well. Let's get these in focus. The text on them is very clear, very easy to read. I really enjoy these. You could stare at them from quite a long way away. The numbers are so large you can still see them. But really, you add a terrain defense modifier, which there's a different one in each area. Usually it's +1, +2, +3. You add that when you're defending. When you're attacking, you kind of add your units, attack value, and then you have supporting units. Basically everything else in the area, you add that kind of as a +1 for each one that's there, both attacking and defending. The US have a few bonuses or some support units they can call on, and then you just chuck dice to see who wins. Things get pretty bloody pretty quickly, but the onus on this game specifically is for the Americans to kind of take everything over. They've got to encircle the Japanese and kind of get them. One thing that I will recommend, and I know I talked about this when I show you, this play aid does not come with the game, but you can print it off from BGG. Fantastic play aid. Has all of the modifiers and just a summary of everything. So basically you just read the rulebook once and you can honestly put the rulebook away and everything's on here. I wish this came with the game, and maybe in some of their subsequent titles they'll put something like that in there, but really it's a very simple game. Areas are either Japanese controlled or US controlled, and certain areas have red VP values. Those are the ones you got to take. Americans got to get to 10 VPs. Very, very simple. Honestly, that's it. There's a few of these support counters which just have a straight value on them. These are bombardment markers. You'll want to use these. It's just basically it's a naval bombardment. I roll 2d6, add 8, and I target whichever area I'm targeting. They have their terrain defense modifier, and that's about it. And you just rain fire down on them. So there's some different things that you'll do, but a lot of it is do some of those bombardments, soften them up, move in and attack. The Japanese will sometimes counterattack. Very difficult, very hard to do. They also have a kamikaze marker over here, which they can use to actually attack that naval support marker I just showed you. You can actually try and fly this in, and it basically uses up the naval bombardment marker, whereas it's less that they destroyed the Navy, it's more of they kept the Navy tied up defending themselves so they couldn't do bombardments. There's a few little bits and pieces like that, but really one of the neat parts of this game is just how quick and easy it is to learn. The the unique part here as well, you've got this little holding box where I kept the HQ, which is Major Igawa, and the Ernie Pyle counter. And Ernie Pyle was a war correspondent, and he had an illustrious career throughout the war. He covered basically every major operation on the Allied side. And it's called Last Battle Hiroshima 1945 because it was the last battle, but it was also his last battle. He was killed in action here. On day 3 of the campaign on April 18th, he was killed by a Japanese sniper. And the game comes with a little pamphlet, and this is actually a very nice thick cardstock pamphlet, about Ernie Pyle, and there's a Ernie Pyle World War II museum, which is actually just about 2 hours away from where I live, so shame on me for having never gone there, but I'm going to go visit that site. It's a kind of a state historical site here in Indiana. Just the depth and a little flavor of that really brings this game to life. It gives you just a little bit more of a bit more humanism, realism in the game, and I thought that was really nice. You know, every time I'm using an Ernie Pyle counter. That's a real guy. I just read about his life and his achievements here. It's more than just like, it's this infantry, company that I'm using. I'm sure there is a lot of history and stories there, but it's hard to bring that out in a game. But having a few nice touches like this really, serves to the man's memory, but also helps you learn some more about the game. But again, check out the solo playthrough for a lot more details of the rules and everything like that. I'll just wrap up with some final thoughts. So that's a look kind of just at the board and what the game looks like. Again, this isn't the biggest game in the whole world, but it's really easy to learn. The rulebook is what? There's a glossary at the back. The rulebook is 11 pages, 10 of which are like two pages of which are like advanced rules or optional rules. Frankly, use all the rules. The game is not complex enough for you to say, oh, we're not going to use this thing, we'll save that, that's too difficult. It's honestly not like that. You can play with everything, it's really not hard. One thing I will recommend is this play aid that I just showed you. This is a great play aid. Use it, print it off, it's on Board Game Geek. Doesn't come with the game. Like I said, I wish it did. Really, really helpful reference. Read the rulebook once, set up the game, never look at the rulebook ever again, basically. It's all on this chart here. That's very, very nice. Just once again, having the extra human touch in this game from Ernie Pyle, again, of War Correspondent, that was just really nice touch to this game. So kudos to Revolution Games. This is really fun. A really neat solitaire game. This is also a very, very good introduction to this area impulse system. If you've never played a game like this, where it's the areas and they have numbers, and you do this kind of alternating sub-turns within a turn, I would highly recommend this to learn that system. From here, you can springboard into a ton of other games. There's a lot of games, there's a huge Normandy one that I know is immensely popular. I believe the Storm Over series, there's Storm Over Arnhem and Storm Over Casino, I want to say. Those type games use this very similar system with these area impulse games like that. There's a lot of games that use the system. This is a great jumping up point. And again, for the price point, you can't beat it. This is a very, very well produced game. So happy to have this in my collection. I honestly would recommend you go pick this up. It's very, very inexpensive. Great little game. Plays very quickly. I mean, an hour and a half, 2 hours at most if you were really, really dragging it out. But if you were familiar with the rules, you could play this in 60 minutes. It could be that quick, I think. Maybe get a pen and paper handy. So sometimes the totals, you're rolling 2d6 and adding all of your modifiers. Sometimes that can get a little bit high, so maybe having a notepad or a piece of paper to keep track of that would help the game go a little bit smoother. Just so you don't have to count everything, roll the dice, and then recount everything like, oh, what did I have again? That's the only real thing. But this is a game of moving guys around on a board, trying to take areas, and the onus is on the Americans to go and do that. The Japanese just honestly, half the forces, once you get to a certain point, after turn 1, basically, the Japanese forces will be quite static within themselves. They might move a couple guys in between things, but really it's just like this huge clump of guys all dug in, and you just got to clear them out. And it's wave after wave of attacks, trying to not take as many US losses, because the US lose victory points if they take losses and reductions. So they got to take the areas whilst minimizing how many guys die. So that's kind of the brunt of where that comes from. So that was a very fun game. So this, I know I'm just kind of, I've lost all my words today. So this is Last Battle Shima, 1945. This is from Revolution Games. Go pick it up. Great little game. Appreciate you watching. I'll just wrap up because I can't speak anymore. So I've been Alexander from theplayersaid.com. If you like what you see, go ahead and like and subscribe. Head on over to theplayersaid.com. We've got a ton of reviews and other wargame content. I appreciate you sitting with us and watching today.